Are you ready to unlock the secrets of the economic universe? Get ready, because today we're diving into a mind-bending battle of ideas that has shaped our world. This isn't just theory. It's the very foundation of how governments and central banks make decisions that impact your wallet, your job, and your future. Understanding this will give you an incredible edge in understanding the news and making sense of the economic forces around you. It's truly dopamine-inducing knowledge. So let's jump right in and explore the fascinating rivalry between Keynesianism and monetarism, presented in an easy-to-understand chronological order. Introduction: the economic battleground. Imagine two grand philosophies, each claiming to hold the key to economic prosperity. On one side, we have Keynesianism, a school of thought that believes government intervention is essential to stabilize the economy. On the other, monetarism, which champions the power of money, supply and free markets. These aren't just academic debates. They represent fundamentally different approaches to managing a country's economy, influencing everything from taxes and government spending to interest rates and inflation. To truly grasp their significance, we need to go back in time and understand how these ideas emerged and evolved. Body a chronological journey through economic thought. Part 1. The birth of Keynesianism, the Roaring Twenties, and the Great Depression. Our story begins in the early 20th century. The 1920s, often called the Roaring Twenties, saw unprecedented economic growth and prosperity, especially in the United States. Businesses boomed, the stock market soared, and many believed that severe economic downturns were over. This period was characterized by classical economic thought, which emphasized the self-correcting nature of markets. The prevailing belief was that markets would always find their equilibrium, and full employment would naturally be achieved. However, this optimistic view crashed with the Great Depression in 1929. The stock market crashed, banks failed, businesses went bankrupt, and unemployment skyrocketed. Classical economic theories seemed unable to explain or solve this crisis. This was a critical turning point that set the stage for a revolutionary new way of thinking. This is where John Maynard Keynes, a brilliant British economist, entered the scene. Keynes observed the devastating effects of the Depression and concluded that classical economics was flawed, particularly in its assumption that markets would always self-correct quickly. In his seminal work, The General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money, 1936, Keynes presented a radical new framework. He argued that in times of severe economic downturns, demand in the economy could be insufficient to stimulate production and employment. He introduced aggregate demand, the total demand for goods and services. Keynes posited that when aggregate demand is low, the economy can get stuck in high unemployment and low output, a situation markets alone might not fix. His most famous contribution was the idea that governments have a crucial role in stabilizing the economy. He advocated for active government intervention, particularly through fiscal policy. This involves increasing government spending, e.g. on infrastructure, or cutting taxes, to boost aggregate demand during a recession. He believed such actions would stimulate production, create jobs, and pull the economy out of a slump. Conversely, during periods of overheating or inflation, Keynes suggested governments could reduce spending or increase taxes. The core of Keynesian economics is the belief that government intervention can smooth out the business cycle and ensure full employment. Part 2. The rise of monetarism, the post-war boom and stagflation. Following World War II, Keynesian ideas gained widespread acceptance and became the dominant economic paradigm. The post-war era saw significant economic growth and relative stability, attributed by many to Keynesian policies. Governments actively used fiscal policy to manage their economies, believing they could fine-tune economic performance. However, by the 1970s, new challenges emerged that tested Keynesian theory. The world experienced a combination of stagnant economic growth, high unemployment, and high inflation. This was problematic because Keynesian theories suggested high inflation and high unemployment shouldn't occur simultaneously. Stagflation indicated a failure of traditional Keynesian tools to address this complex problem. This period saw the rise of an alternative school of thought, monetarism, led by Milton Friedman. Friedman and his fellow monetarists argued that inflation was primarily a monetary phenomenon, caused by too much money chasing too few goods. They heavily criticized the Keynesian emphasis on fiscal policy and government spending. Believing such interventions often led to unintended consequences, including inflation and an expanding role for government. The central tenet of monetarism is that the money supply, the total amount of money circulating in an economy, is the most significant factor in determining economic activity and inflation. In the long run, monetarists argued that if the central bank allowed the money supply to grow too rapidly, it would inevitably lead to inflation. Conversely, they believed that stable and predictable growth in the money supply was crucial for economic stability and low inflation. Friedman famously stated that inflation is always and everywhere a monetary phenomenon. He advocated for a stable and predictable monetary policy, often suggesting that central banks should target a constant growth rate for the money supply. This approach emphasized less government intervention, believing that free markets, if unhindered, would allocate resources efficiently and lead to stable economic growth. The focus shifted from government spending, fiscal policy, to the management of money supply by the central bank monetary policy. Part 3. The ongoing debate and modern interpretations. Since the 1970s, the debate between Keynesianism and monetarism has continued to evolve. While pure monetarism has somewhat faded, its core ideas about the importance of monetary policy and the dangers of excessive money creation have deeply influenced modern central banking. Many central banks today prioritize price stability, controlling inflation as their primary objective, a direct legacy of monetarist thought. Similarly, Keynesian ideas have also adapted. Modern Keynesianism, often referred to as New Keynesianism, incorporates elements of rational expectations and micro-foundations, acknowledging that monetary policy is important, but still emphasizing the role of aggregate demand and the potential need for fiscal policy during severe recessions. The global financial crisis of 2008 and the COVID-19 pandemic saw a resurgence of Keynesian-inspired policies, with governments implementing massive fiscal stimulus packages. Today, most economists recognize that neither pure Keynesianism nor pure monetarism provides all the answers. Instead, there's often a blend of ideas. Central banks use monetary policy, like adjusting interest rates to manage inflation and stimulate growth, while governments use fiscal policy, like taxes and spending, to address specific economic challenges or provide stimulus. The interplay between these two sets of tools is complex and often debated, with economists constantly refining their understanding of how best to achieve stable growth and full employment. Conclusion: understanding the economic landscape. So what have we learned? We've seen how the devastating Great Depression gave birth to Keynesianism, advocating active government intervention through fiscal policy. Then, we witnessed the challenges of stagflation in the 1970s, which propelled monetarism to the forefront, emphasizing the crucial role of money, supply, and stable monetary policy in controlling inflation. While both theories have evolved, their core insights continue to shape how we think about and manage economies today. Understanding this fundamental intellectual battle equips you with a powerful lens to view economic news and policy debates. It's not just about history, it's about understanding the very forces that drive our economic present and future. Key English vocabulary explained in Korean. Unlock 잠금을 해제하다, 비밀을 풀다. Secrets, 비밀들. Economic universe, 경제 세계, 경제 영역. 마인밴딩, 정신을 휘어잡는 매우 놀라운. Battle of ideas, 사상의 싸움, 관념의 대립. Shaped, 형성했다, 영향을 주었다. Theory iron. Foundation 토대, 기초. Central banks, 중앙은행들. Impact, 영향을 미치다. Wallet, 지갑. Future, 미래. Edge, 우위, 유리함. Understanding, 이해. Economic forces, 경제적인 힘, 경제력. 도파민의 inducing, 도파민을 유발하는. Rivalry, 경쟁, 대립. Keynesianism, 케인즈주의. Monetarism, 통화주의. Chronological order, 연대기적 순서. Economic prosperity, 경제적 번영. Government intervention, 정부 개입. Essential, 필수적인. Stabilize, 안정시키다. Champions, 옹호하다, 지지하다. Power of money, supply, 통화, 공급의 힘. Free markets, 자유시장. Academic debates, 학술적인 논쟁. Fundamentally different, 근본적으로 다른. Approaches, 접근법들. Managing, 관리하는 것. Inflation, 물가 상승. Significance, 중요성. Emerge, 나타났다, 발생했다. Evolved, 진화했다, 발전했다. Roaring Twenties 광란의 20년대, Unprecedented 전례 없는 Prosperity 번영, 호황, Booming 활황인 호황인, Soaring 치솟는 Classical Economic Thought 고전 경제학 사상, Self-correcting nature 자정작용, 스스로 수정하는 본성, Equilibrium 균형, Full employment 완전 고용, Came crashing down 무너져 내렸다, Great Depression 대공황, Stock market crash 주식 시장이 폭락했다, Banks failed 은행들이 파산했다, Bankrupt 파산한, Unemployment skyrocketed 실업률이 급증했다,